needs to leave, so I'll try to be as quick as we can. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, October 22nd Watertown Board of Adjustment meeting. Roll call, please.
Stein.
Here.
Stonebarger. Here. Arnold.
Here.
Shriver.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Dolly.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Albertson.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Boy, do we have a quorum.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the October 7th, 2015 minutes. Could I get a motion in a second? Motion by Mr. McGuire,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Dolly. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second item on the agenda is Christy Fleming. Permit number 16409 seeks conditional use to operate a home daycare at 1105 12th Avenue Northeast.
Thank you. Applicant seeks conditional use approval to operate a home daycare business out of a single-family dwelling located in the R1 Single Family Residential District per ordinance. Applicant for conditional, yeah. Fleming is seeking approval to care for up to 12 children, including 2 of her own in her owner-occupied home. If approved, if approved by this board, applicant plans to register with the state. She has received and will comply with the ordinance requirements for the home occupations per ordinance. Applicant will regularly utilize the main and lower levels of approximately 3,056 square feet split level dwelling for daycare business. According to the applicant's submitted site plan, the property has a double garage and 26-foot wide concrete driving and parking area, allowing 3 legal off-street parking spaces. The minimum number required is 2. The board to consider requiring additional compliant off-street parking as a secondary use as approval. Good enough.
Thank you. With that, I'll open the public hearing if anyone's here to speak on behalf or against the conditional use.
And we have not been contacted pro or con with regard to this request.
Quick question, do you run these addresses by the police department to see if there's been any complaints or issues at those addresses?
Nope.
Should we?
Nope.
Yeah, we should. We don't have a member of the police department here tonight, do we? How about fire? Did I see Chip walk in? Chip, do you look at these, see if you have any issues or questions on the home daycare? I think it would be a good idea if we'd run those addresses by the police department and make sure there's been no complaints or issues at those addresses before we approve them.
Chip with the fire department. Normally we work with the state when they do their licensing, and if the state has any questions on egress windows, certain things like that, then we go through and work together on that.
So the properties that are applying with the state contacts you to do an inspection?
Yes.
Okay. And this one you'd mentioned had made a,
If approved, she will file with the state to become certified by the state.
and at that time you'll take a look at it. All right, thank you. Anyone else have any questions? With that, I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mr. Albertson, second by Mr. Stonebarger. Any other discussion on it? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the applicant Alyssa Hart, permit number 16410. Request the variance for the property at 1334 Harmony Lane in regard to a garage.
Application was submitted for the construction of a non-conforming 528 square foot, 22 by 24 addition onto an existing non-conforming 528 square foot attached garage for a single-family dwelling located in the R1 Single Family Residential District. Said addition proposed to be constructed 2.3 feet from the side south property line where 9 feet is required. A little bit of history. This portion of the garage went through Board of Adjustment back in 1976 and was granted to be built with a 3-foot offset, apparently in 76, but the actual construction document or survey now indicates that it was only 2.3 feet. But what they are requesting to do, they're requesting just to build straight back in line with the existing garage. They have a bunch of utilities, gas lines and water lines, everything that comes in over here, so it makes it real hard to try to push it over without having to relocate all of that. And they're basically just wanting to stay in line with what they got so they can get some of their boats and trailers and stuff off the street. Again, this is another one that we have not been contacted by anybody for or against with regard to this issue, so.
And the cards are all sent out in return.
Yes.
Okay. With that, I'll open the public hearing if anyone's here to speak on behalf or against the variance. Question I had, Ken, was are they going to tie in going toward the backyard. They're gonna leave the roof line just like it is on what's
Well,
existing
yeah,
and
the
tie
roof-
back.
The other roof on the peak will run this way. It'll go across the back and then it'll go. side
The
to
assumption
side.
is that
You can-
the new addition, the roof line the water will drain toward the neighbors.
It would, yes.
And we'd require that you put rain gutters on there so that you move the water away from the neighbors. Any questions for the applicant?
Anything you wanna add on
If, in the engineering department's analysis, they said if you moved the addition a little bit farther to the north, I believe it, then you wouldn't need a variance. But that's where you run into the underground.
The utility room and stuff is right where the house and the garage meet right now. You can see right in the back right there is the meter.
Push the top red button in the middle.
Right there is where the meter and gas lines and everything come in. Right on the inside of the wall there is where the fuse box and all the power of the house is. So if we jogged over to that, we'd have to move all that out of the way, which could turn into probably not worth it. I mean, at that point.
Just state your name too, please.
Cody Jackson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? That'll close the public hearing. Ask for a motion in a second.
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Arnold. Does that include to request that they put the rain gutters on that
Yes.
side that slopes to the, second by Mr. McGuire. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Fourth item on the agenda is Alvin and Diane Meisenheimer, permit number 16412. Appeal the requirements of the zoning ordinance in regard to a primary structure located at 120 and 124 3rd Street Southwest.
Again, application was submitted for the construction of an addition to connect the existing detached garage to the primary structure, single-family dwelling attached. Said connection would result in the creation of 3 attached garages on a lot that's allowed for a maximum of 2. Again, a little bit of history here. This is constructed in 2007 as a complying duplex here with a detached garage. The applicant now needs a place for rehabilitation. He has some physical forms, and what they want to do is they want to take this garage now and attach a breezeway between it so they can go by ramp from the existing garage to the house, which they're not able to do from the inside garage because of steps from that garage into the house and the narrowness of it.
So Ken, he's just converting one of the north stalls of the garage to a rehabilitation room?
A rehabilitation room and then
so
making
he's
a
not-
ramp so they can go out inside instead of outside to go from one to the other.
The only construction will be for the ramp itself.
Possibly a little bit in that room and basically just the ramp itself, yes, that's correct.
What about the breezeway in between the two buildings?
Yeah, that.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
they're gonna,
As we said, a little bit in that room there and then the breezeway between the two
yeah,
buildings.
so they're basically tying that detached garage to the existing duplex. That puts 3,
Correct. And it already
that
has-
basically has 3 attached garages, which that's outside our
It's a
code.
duplex, so they have 1 attached, so this side will actually have 2 attached garages, which is the variance they're requesting.
That's the variance. And what they're gonna do is put a little breezeway in there so they can put a rehab room in there and a handicap ramp.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone to speak here on behalf or against the,
Again, all public notice requirements have been met, and nobody has contacted us pro or against the issue.
with that, I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion and a second for discussion.
A motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Stonebarger, second by Mr. Stein. Any further discussion on it? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Fifth item on the agenda is Paulfic Homes, permit number 16258, appeals the zoning ordinance in regard to the property at 1434 Second Street Northwest.
Yes. Application number 16259 was issued for compliant single-family dwelling to be located on the R2 Single-Family Attached Residential District building. The building official stopped work when the inspections revealed that the new garage footing foundation did not comply with the submitted site plan and in fact encroached the required front yard setback. what happened here is they built a house and there's two sets of plans went out there. They started with a set of plans that said it was gonna be a 20-foot, and Nate's here if you have any questions for Nate. Again, this was public notice. All public notice requirements are met, and I was contacted by one neighbor just to find out what the issues were, but they neither had a yes or a no to it. I'm just gonna let Nate tell you what happened.
Okay, Nathan Sandbolt with Paul Fick Homes Incorporated. When that lot was staked out, it was done with the plans that show a garage that's 22 feet deep on the third stall side of that garage. My foundation excavator got a plan that had the garage 24 feet deep. When I stake out that lot, I give the foundation contractor reference points for the back wall line. He pulls his measurements off that back wall line forward. And since that garage is 24 feet deep now instead of 22 feet deep, it pushed it into the front yard setback by about 1 foot 4 inches. Usually we shoot for 25'6" from the front property line to the front of the garage. And now we're not that far apart from the property line, or that far from the property line, so.
And the house is,
With that, let me, I'll open the public hearing if anyone speak on behalf or against it.
you know, the foundation's all in, the basement floor is in, and everything else is basically just in there, 1.4 feet.
So did they build a 24-foot garage instead of 22, basically?
Yeah, that's right. It's a 3-stall garage. We don't have, you have a side plan?
This is the old one.
So it's an asking for forgiveness rather than permission, but not
Basically,
really?
Yes, it is.
So I guess our question is, we don't like to see that, but
I agree,
what
and
what have you done inside your corporation to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Talked to our drafter about making sure his prints are right. Talked with the foundation guy to make sure he looks down the street and notices whether his foundation is in front of the other ones,
Okay.
and just trying to double check ourselves more often, I guess.
What, what plan was turned into you, Ken? Was it the 22-foot garage?
Yes.
That's what was submitted for building permit?
Here, Nate, you-
having
you can do this.
here, we're now at 24, which pushes this ahead into that setback.
And it's already built.
The foundation's in, we have stopped framing on it.
I see.
The framing contractor.
But the foundation's there, so if you actually brought
Foundation.
the main garage back, you'd have a foundation that's sticking out a little bit in front of the garage, so it's not a,
Well, we
not
have
an
to
option.
cut the foundation back to get
Gotcha.
into that setback, and the garage floor is poured, so
that faces Second Street out there.
it
Correct.
faces, yes.
So does this line up with,
Actually, this one?
The red dot on top.
This porch here, this covered porch here is actually in front of our garage right now.
And the neighbor at 1422, I think that is, that's their garage on your side, so it's not like there's a picture
Yeah.
window that you're out in front of or anything.
Let's see.
Yeah, 14.
Your garages
1412
butt
is
up
the
against
garage.
each other.
Garage here, our garage is right in this area
Yeah.
here. So our garage will be a little bit in front of his, and actually, it's behind this roof line here of his covered front porch.
Okay.
Tell me again how that happened, because normally you would pull off your definite sides of 25 and 9 and 9. Those are your two that are very critical. That's where you'd
Correct.
pull when you stake
And
a house.
that's what I did, because that's a plan I had. I had a plan that showed 22 feet deep on that third stall garage side.
Okay.
So I staked the back wall line off of that plan, and the foundation contractor got a plan that showed a 24 feet deep garage on that third stall side.
And he worked from back to front.
Yeah, so he pulls out that back wall line.
He pulled 24 instead of
Yeah.
22, and then the other side is a little deeper too then.
Correct.
so they're basically two plans?
Yep.
Where'd the second plan come from? The one,
Same draft-
the
draftsman.
wrong plan.
Same draftsman.
Have you built that second
Oh.
plan before, that house
Yes, we-
before
we
several
have.
times, or?
Yeah, a lot of our plans, we have done several variations of that plan.
Question Stanton had, Ken, was, do they have to do they have to get a second building permit to make sure we have the right one on file then?
Well, once you guys say yes, no, or maybe, then we'll modify whatever we have to make it work.
Right.
You'll modify the existing one?
That's correct.
Yep.
So the penalty for it was he has to come here and pay the fee before the Board of Adjustment? The fine? Instead of levying a fine, we
In
can
part.
basically say part of it was he had to spend the day coming to talk to us. And what does it cost for him to come to us?
Yeah, about $200.
So he's paying a $200 fine to ask for forgiveness?
Are the other, how many other garages are 24 feet deep? Are most of your garages 22 or 24?
Most of them are 22.
22?
Yeah, but we do have some that are 24. So it does happen. Yeah.
All right, any other questions? With that, I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion and a second for discussion.
I motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Johnson. Second by Mr. Albertson. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, did you say no? I said no. Okay, roll call, please.
Stein?
Yes.
Stonebarger?
Abstain.
Arnold?
Yes.
Shriver?
Yes.
Hanson? Blake, Dolly?
Yes.
McGuire? Albertson?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 6 is applicant Travis Youthy, DBA Trav's Outfitter, permit number 16413. Allows for the construction of a non-conforming commercial building in C3 zone, 2610 8th Avenue Southeast. Hey, Jill, on that last vote, we don't count, because we have a
Yeah,
quorum, we don't
I
count
asked him at the
Johnson.
end.
Okay.
I was being nice. Not when we have a full quorum, you don't. But we still like to hear your
I
views.
mean, you count in
We
our
still like to
heart,
hear your
but not
views.
on the ballot.
All right. Pardon? Oh, you made the motion?
For the record.
Clarify that for the record. Somebody else want to make the motion?
I'm gonna-
The other non-voting member.
We need a motion and a second on the last vote, because both of those are alternates and we have a full quorum. We need a motion and a second on the last item number 5, because both the
I'll move.
motion by Mr. Stein, second by Mr. Dolly. For the record, the motion will be by Mr. Stein, the second will be by Mr. Dolly.
Thank you. Oh, come on, let him sign. Be nice.
Okay, item number 6, I've
Yes, again.
introduced it.
Coho and applicant Travis Youthy, DBA Travis Outfitters. Applicant was submitted for the construction of a non-conforming commercial building in the C3 Highway Zone G1 Gateway District. Said structure proposed to be constructed as close as 27 feet from the front westerly property line where minimum 40 foot is required, and with open on-screen loading facilities facing street frontage. I'm gonna have to go to a visual here for the best for this one. The applicant's requesting a The applicant's requesting a variance to the setbacks. This is in the Gateway Overlay District. The Gateway Overlay District in the C3 zone has a 40-foot frontage. This has 3 frontages, but one of the caveats within the Gateway District, if less than 15% of that yard is occupied by parking, then it can go down to 25 feet. So they have a 40-foot here, they have a 40-foot here, they have 25-foot here. What falls into this, because we have that irregular lot here, is this little shaded corner here is what he's asking for variance to. He's doing a square building with a rounded corner versus a rounded corner lot. So that's the request for that part. Then within the door part of the scenario, see if I got a picture here. Again, the Gateway District does not allow for doors on any frontage. He actually, again, he's harbored by 3 frontages here. So he's requesting the, well, I'm just gonna go back to the site plan and show you within that again.
So in the Gateway District, you're not allowed doors on the frontage, and he's asking for doors on 2 of the 3 sides?
Yep.
Jeez,
So, but there's doors here.
teasing.
And there's doors here.
And the concept with that, in that part of the ordinance is really, we say doors, but I think what we've looked to more is loading docks. That's what we've tried to get away from, is we really, from an aesthetic point in a commercial district, we try to get away from the loading docks. And I don't know if you've got, did they give us a picture of the building? Their doors are really not loading docks, that, you know, and I kind of looked at it and thought aesthetically it matches the spirit of the building. With that, I'll open the public hearing if anyone has anything to say in regard to it.
And again, all public notice requirements have been met.
And I believe the reasoning, I talked to the applicant a while back, I believe the reasoning for those doors on both sides is some of the vehicles that they use in their business and sales that they like to be able to drive through
Right.
with deliveries. Their
He runs
boot
basically
trailers, things like that.
6 trucks, you know, it's almost a tractor
Yeah.
trailer scenario with trailers. He goes out on the shoot thing where they'd come in
And I-
Ken,
late at night, go out early in the morning and use those 6 stalls.
are those ones that face the front, do those garage doors go all the way down to ground level, or is it,
They go all the way to ground level, yeah. That's just a brick type frontage there to make them look aesthetically.
And
so that brick goes up with the doors, or? It just looked to me like they've got, 2 or 3 feet of brick on the bottom of the door there.
It does, but I'm sure that's some kind of aesthetic.
You want us to explain?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I'm Travis Youthy, the owner. Sorry about that, can't run your microphone. I'm Travis Youthy, the owner of Trav's Outfitter.
There's a red dot,
Okay,
that top red dot button.
right there. See, I can't run your button either. What this is along the bottom of those doors is a different shade than the top of the doors so that it will blend in with the stonework on the front of it. The idea was to blend these doors in with the look or the facade of the building so that they wouldn't stick out. You know, the idea isn't to have a white aluminum clad door with oval windows in it like you'd find at a dock or at a service garage or whatever it might be. The idea was, we're gonna put doors in there that will go along with the finishes of the building. Those pull-through bays are we're proposing, they're just about 100 feet deep. We have 4 different pieces of equipment that we use to go out to job sites and manufacturing facilities, and that's one reason for building this new facility the way we're building it. Currently, our employees have to load and unload those trucks in the wintertime across icy parking lots and in the rain and everything else. Besides the fact that on the weekends, we pull inventory off those trucks to sell to customers. And when it's 10 below outside, the boots are 10 below. And so it doesn't make it very conducive to selling the product. So that's the reasoning for those doors. And I'll answer any other questions that anybody else might have.
Is this drawing, or the drawings that were provided, is this pretty close to what the building's gonna look like?
Yes,
Or
it
this-
is.
Or this is exactly what it's gonna look like?
It's not exactly. We've made some changes. The curved top there that you see will not be there. There'll be a different sort of roof line. What we've done is, this was our conceptual drawing that we thought we had pulled down to get it within our budget, and there's a few, the feeling and the theme of the building is gonna be intact. But there are some small things that aesthetically that we'll have to change just to get within our budget. So But yes, the finishes on the outside of the building, the stonework, the height of the sort of granary center area, those things are all going to be maintained.
Okay, in front of the garage doors, you've got parking spaces. How's that gonna work?
Well, what we're gonna try to do, these are pull-through bays, and the idea is we're mostly gonna use the doors on the north side or on the back side. And so those parking spaces are in the front of there so that we'll have sufficient parking for our customers. But we wanna be able to get in and out of those doors early in the morning or late at night before store hours if we have to, if we leave at 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. But those doors aren't gonna be used during the normal daily course of operation, daily, the working hours from 8 in the morning till 8 at night.
I think one of the concerns of the committee here, as well as the intent of the overlay district and all that, is to, I presume, so that it doesn't look like a, truck terminal, What's your opinion on that as far as the look and appeal, the curb appeal of how this is going to look as far as one of the first, businesses that we have out there?
Yeah, I guess I think that, with the design work that we've spent, the architecture dollars that we've spent, there's a reason that, those doors cost 3 times what a white door will cost, and we're willing to make that investment so that it goes with we want to live within the nature of what the intention is of your ordinances. We're not asking, we're going to build an expensive facility here that we want Watertown to be proud of. We don't want it to be something that's an eyesore. And I believe that building it in this fashion is far better than if you've been by our place on Highway 20 where we have to have all the equipment outside and we got to push snow around it all winter. I think that's a lot more of an eyesore than what we're proposing to build here.
I think, my opinion on the building, I think it's a very attractive building. I understand what he's trying to do there. I think going back to what Pat said initially is that we don't want a warehouse type look with loading ramps and things on the front side. If you take those doors the way they look, if you want to make a comparison, take Stone's. Stone's have windows that are put in their truck stop out there to look like doors, and those face a highway. I realize it's not in the same area, but they're purposely put in so they look like a garage door. And here he's got nice looking doors that are functioning that he can use, but yet it doesn't look like a warehouse.
It's kind of funny,
or
I
a
went
big
by
garage.
Prairie Stop, they too have windows
Same
that
thing.
look like garage doors, and I thought that's
Right, same
kind of
thing.
interesting. We can aesthetically build a building to look like garage doors, but you can't put garage doors in.
That's my point.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I went, hey, it says shell, it looks like a garage door there.
He's not using them during the day, for early morning, late at night, so during business hours, people are going to be able to use those parking places to park, so.
Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion and a second for discussion.
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Arnold.
I'll second.
Second by Mr., was it Stein? The other question too is on that, the irregular shape on that northwest corner. I think if that was squared off, they wouldn't have needed that, and I can see that was squared off. I was just gonna make a note that this includes that
Yeah.
also. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any other old or new business?
Not for me yet.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Stonebarger, second by Mr. Stein. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll keep coming back until you guys get second. Thank you.
Is this your guys' stuff or somebody else? Is that your guys' stuff or somebody else's? Somebody else's. Oh, it must be Jeff's, okay.
We waiting for Jeff? Oh, we want to do the sign first? Okay, Tim. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, October 22nd Sign Code Board of Appeals. Roll call, please.
Stein?
Here.
Stonebarger?
Present.
Arnold? Here. Shriver?
Here.
Hanson? Here. Dolly? Here. McGuire? Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from October 7th, 2015. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Dolly, second by Mr. McGuire. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Second item is Dynatune Performance and Towing, 605 Sign and Graphics, a sign permit number 142A at 28 at 1402 26th Street Southeast.
Yes, the the applicant is Andy Wicks, doing business as Dynatune and Performance Auto Towing at 1402 26th Street North or Southeast. They applied for their sign, and in the I-1 zoning district, it has a 10-foot setback. They are appealing that and would like to go to a 0 setback in that area. All public notices were met. I did hear from an adjacent landowner who is here and present, I see is in, and he supports this applicant and would like to maybe see some changes potentially if it's something you guys want to look at doing. So basically what it is this piece of property right here. This is an 80-foot right-of-way, and then there's another 10-foot required for the edge of the sign to be placed on this property, which then would put it from the center of the roadway.
Can you zoom that in a little bit?
Yep. From the center of the roadway to the edge of his sign would be 50 feet.
How far from the edge of the roadway to his sign?
I think it's, hold on.
It's an 80-foot right-of-way. I see it's, it's zoned industrial. I imagine that's why there's that much right-of-way, but we're not using that much right-of-way, it doesn't look like.
From the back of the road yet, or the curb?
Yeah, from the curb to where his sign is going to be.
It's about 16, 17 feet.
So he's asking for it to be 16 or 17 feet from the back of the curb
That is correct.
versus 27 feet.
Correct.
With that, I'll open the public hearing if anyone's here to speak in behalf or against it. We have a 0 setback in the C1 through 3,
That is correct.
and here we got a 10-foot setback,
In all I zones.
and no one can tell us why.
Yeah, Luke is here.
Luke, do you have any idea why we have a 10-foot setback in an I zone? And in this case, we got an 80-foot right-of-way. That's a pretty big right-of-way in there.
Luke Muller, First District. I asked Todd Kays, who had helped out with the writing of this ordinance many years ago as well. The question and the fact of the matter is you see in industrial districts similar to agricultural districts and even some commercial districts, but rarely a setback 10 feet or more, basically because in the industrial and ag types of districts, the idea is that the businesses that'll be in those districts are not ones that are going to be window businesses or drive-by businesses. They're going to be ones that you know you're going there when you do. So the idea is they're just to name the business once you pull up. That's
More of a
where it came from.
monument-like sign
Well, to
rather than a
degree, or
retail-like
a wall
sign.
sign, something like that, that you're going to know what you get to when you get there. And that's why it came into that. I just looked in. It's similar to other cities. One of the things that we do see in this area is that it's a little different type of an industrial district than we have in other parts of the town.
That's an 80-foot right-of-way. How wide is the street itself? Is that street, in reality, extra wide street too?
I think it's a little wider than your standard. I believe it's 42 feet, I think, back of curb to back of curb. I mean, if Shane was here, he'd know it's standard, but it is a little bit wider than your residential street.
Okay, so with respect to the curb, where's the 10-foot setback from in relation to the curb then?
Right here, like in this scenario, it'd be 10 foot back from this blue line, which would essentially be approximately 27 feet from the back of the curb to the edge of the sign. It would be able to fit within this green space area, but it would be pretty close to that concrete on this picture.
So there's existing trees planted there. Would that be with the 0 setback? That would be right in
On his neighbor's property there. There's no trees in here.
Oh.
His neighbor's property does have boulevard trees put in. He does not at this point.
Looks like there's trees. Sure.
Yeah, there's no trees there.
Andy Wicks, owner of Dino Tune. Yeah, we don't have any trees in there yet. I was trying to get all the sign stuff coordinated and whatever and whatnot. But the other thing I'd like to mention, ABS, who built approximately the same time we did, their sign is, I think it's 40 feet from the center of the road.
It's within setback. They did maintain their 10-foot. I can zoom out and get you there. But they kind of take advantage of the road curving there. So the appearance is, because their lot has that little curve to it, when you drive down the street, it's essentially like a zero setback, because if you continue this straight line, that's kind of where the edge of their sign is. So they kind of achieved the same thing with it, but they could maintain the 10-foot. So it does fit within the
So where's
rules,
the 10 foot
but
from the curb then?
because of that little hook in
10
the
feet
road
back here
there,
from the curb?
the appearance is it's like a kind of a zero setback.
17.
Yeah, and actually in the neighborhood, Darren from McKeever's, Henry from Lake City Fire, that's across the street there, the red top.
So you have to be 27
Kaz
feet
from
back from the
K&L
curb?
Mechanical, they, and then Mike with the professional landscaping. They all also want to, you know, go with the commercial setback, the zero setback on the signs. I guess it's kind of, I don't know, I think it would look better and work better for all of our properties out there, so.
Well, one thing, when I was reading the application, one of the reasons for requesting the setback was that something about you wouldn't be able to see the sign until you're right up on it, you know? And I didn't quite get that from looking
Well,
at the,
and we're kind of on a unique shape there because of the way the road curves and stuff. It's not like you're driving on a block for you know 6 blocks straight, so you have time to see that. I mean, you turn the corner, it's there. The farther back it is off the roadway, the less effective our sign's going to be. If we're going to spend $5,000-8,000 on a sign, we want to be able to get some use out of it, obviously. And you know, we're proposing a very nice lit cabinet sign and everything like that. So, you know, and it would just look odd placed back farther, and we had to have our concrete out that far to be able to have enough parking spaces to accommodate everything that's to meet all the other requirements. So.
I can see that if you had to plant your trees there, and then you had to have a sign on the building or whatever, it'd get lost in the trees, so it would
Yep.
be very difficult to make this work.
okay, so, one more time. So with respect to where the curb is, a zero setback would put the sign, the edge
On
of the
that
sign
blue line.
Approximately 17 feet, just trying to measure this
from the curb.
there to there. Yeah.
A zero setback
Right,
would
but
put him,
I'm just trying to figure out.
it'd
where
put
the
him
gap is.
17 feet
would
from the
go-
existing curb, otherwise he'd be 27 feet
That
from
is
the
correct.
existing
Yep.
curb.
Essentially, the pole will go in 30 foot from the back of the curb because it's a 6-foot wide sign.
And he's asking to be right on the lot line, which is about 17 foot from the existing curb.
So because if
Okay.
we grant this, we'll probably get additional requests. Does that pretty much hold true for the rest of that property there? They've got about 17 feet of,
Yep, this road is centered. It might, because the GIS might look a little off, but it should be the same amount on both sides.
And I think you could
And
argue, in an industrial zone, we probably like an 80-foot setback. We don't know what's going in and out of there for semis or what's going to be there. In this case, it's actually developed as more of a,
More of
most
a
of
commercial
these could
area.
be in a C3 commercial zone, probably.
Yeah,
So it's kind of a little bit of a hybrid. It's really not a true, it wasn't developed as a true industrial zone, and now we've got some retail guys in there that signage is more important than what it would have thought it would have been if it would have been in
It's not an
I-1.
industrial park. It's more of a kind of a like you're saying, a hybrid of commercial industrial
And,
zone.
and the zero setback would be the edge of the sign, not the center of the pole.
Right, that is correct. Yep.
Any other questions before I close the open? With that, I'll close the open, ask for a motion and a second for further discussion.
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Stein,
second.
second by Mr. Stonebarger. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I just have a comment. Is there a way, if we approve this today, we've got, you know, Andy mentioned there's several other people that have the same interest. Can we put this in the motion or so every one of those people don't have to come back before us again?
Stanton will ask.
Whether we say yay or nay, but
Yeah,
let's treat
Can't they
everybody.
say like from 29th Street over to 26th Avenue or whatever it is,
Yeah.
this can apply?
Luke is shaking his head. I think what
I
he's
think-
thinking is we've
No?
opened up a Pandora's box. I don't think we want to change the code in the zone.
We're gonna
because
treat it, we're
serves
gonna
a
treat it
purpose.
like a commercial area.
But what happens, we're gonna get 5 or 6 more coming to us.
Are there any?
Well, they're already in the audience right now today. That's my point.
I see Henry out there. Are there uses out there that wouldn't comply with the C3 district, highway commercial district? I mean, are they zoned I-1 because they wouldn't fit in C3?
I would have to sit down and go all through all of them. I can't tell you right off the top of my head.
But I think that to answer the general question, I think that we could propose a pretty simple ordinance amendment that would amend the setback requirement for that specific geographic area, but to suggest that without complying with the public hearing requirements to grant variances to the setback, short of doing an ordinance revision, Henry and everybody else out there is gonna have to come back before you. So maybe the thing to do is for this board to recommend, the Signco Board of Appeals recommend an ordinance revision that would define geographically where you would allow a 0 setback or whatever you want to, as it relates to sign permit applications. So Tim and Ken aren't having to come back here every time and, like Pat said earlier, spend $200 just to hear you say yes.
Follow that, Tim?
Yes, I do. Yep.
You know, because I don't think we want to change the ordinance in the I zone. This happens to be an I zone that was developed a little more commercially than industrially, and we want to make it user-friendly for everybody, but we don't want to make a mistake either.
Yep, we can, Jeff
All
and
right.
I will work on that and bring
Any other discussion on this particular permit?
The only other thing maybe is that if this does move forward to an ordinance revision, maybe some instruction to Ken and Tim in the future is that any permit application is gonna get referred to the plan commission, just so you know what he's being asked to approve, or maybe you don't want him to do that, but under the code, Kenny can refer any permit application to the plan commission without needing to convene the Signco Board of Appeals. Maybe we just do that, just so you guys know what's being proposed in the area. Does
Thank
that
you.
make sense? Kenny's.
Anything else? Ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. No old business, I assume. I need a motion and a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Motion by Mr. Arnold, second by Mr. Stein. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Luke, do you have time if I move 6 up, if I amend the agenda for you?
I found out I gotta run right away, so I'll come back.
Okay, sounds good. You ready, Jeff?
Yep.
Like to open the Thursday, October 22nd Watertown Plan Commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Stein?
Still here.
Stoneberger.
Here.
Arnold.
Here.
Shriver. Hanson.
Here.
Dolly.
Here.
McGuire. Council Liaison Albertson. We have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the September 24th, 2015 meeting.
Can I get approval of the agenda?
Sure, we will. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Motion by Mr. McGuire, second by Mr. Stonebarger. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Second item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the September 24th, 2015 meeting. Motion by Mr. Stein. Second by Mr. Stonebarger. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Third item on the agenda is the Eastwoods 18th edition plat, and I believe there was a handout too,
Yeah.
you said.
And I apologize for the late handout. In the past, we didn't bring the development agreements to you, and then last minute, engineering staff said that would be a good idea to bring it to you. At this point, that document is just a draft. We haven't even asked Stanton to look it over yet, which we will do before that goes to council, so it's just a draft, and in the future, when we do plats, I'll have those in the agenda. But what that document does is it says, you know, the legal ramifications of what's going to be platted and built, and it goes off of what you guys' preliminary plan was and what roads will be constructed and to what size and stuff. So that's what that document says, and ultimately it goes to the city council to be approved. But today what we're looking for is that you guys approve the plat resolution, and that's, I'm gonna pull up a picture of that plat. Should be going. And this is a plat for Eastwood's 18th edition. This development has been in the works this summer. They've annexed the property and zoned it R1 single family residential. And now they're looking to plat it. They're platting 33 residential lots, and computer's moving a little slow, but they're platting portions of 10th Avenue North, 12th Avenue North, 26th Street East, 27th Street East, and a little bit of 9th Avenue North. This plat is phase one of the preliminary plan, which you guys approved. You know, they have a drainage quality facility in Outlet A. Again, that went with the approved preliminary plan. Was this kind of a formality since the preliminary plan has been approved and the plat matches it, but it still goes before you guys and the city council, and then that document that I gave you, which is the development agreement, will go to city council as well.
Thanks, Jeff. With that, I'll open the public hearing if anyone's here to speak on behalf or against it. We had some in-depth discussion in the roads, and they'd modified some roads in that preliminary plan. This adheres to the agreements they made in the preliminary plan.
Yep, the road widths are spelled out in the agreement, and they're in accordance with the preliminary plan as well.
And then you handed us out an addendum in regard to the park dedication.
Well, the park dedication.
It's highlighted on there. I assume
Um,
that's what you, why you
Sorry, the
handed it
reason
to
I
us.
had that highlighted is as that is still a draft. The park board doesn't actually meet until next Tuesday.
Had
so
me
I-
spooked there for a
Yeah,
minute.
I'm sorry. And so they don't officially get to act on it till next Tuesday, but it's highlighted as a reminder to fix or change whatever they say. But we drafted in there kind of what we anticipate them to say based on the preliminary plan. But of course, if they say something different, we'll of course change that before bringing it to council.
Is that water, is that taken care of then, where your cursor is there?
Yep.
Is that going to take care of the water in that area? That seems like that's such a difficult thing to.
Well, it'll take care of most of the water. The water will flow down 27th Street. There's a hill, so from about my cursor south, it'll flow down, and it'll have to enter into a pipe, and 10th Avenue will continue to flow down, and it'll flow into Outlet A, which is a water quality facility, and then after it goes into this pond, It'll eventually flow out into, through pipes under the road, into a drainage easement, and eventually down to the city ponds that are just north of Willow Creek. So this area right here is approximately where that pond is, and after it goes through that quality facility, it'll flow through this drainage easement and into this drainage creek right here. That'll ultimately, I'll zoom out a little bit. Yep. Ultimately flows down into these city-owned ponds that are in place down here. Future developments in this area will require another water quality pond that's planned to go over here, and that may be built in conjunction with this one, or may be built at a later time. But another water quality pond will need to go here that'll overflow and outlet into the river. But at this time, with the 33 lots, that pond is going to be right there.
Thank you. Going back to that park dedication,
Yep.
show us where the
Yep.
parks.
And I have the preliminary plan.
One of the questions I have is, at what point why isn't the park dedication already been done?
Well,
Shouldn't it have been done earlier in the process?
the park dedication on the approved preliminary plan was in this area.
And what we're talking about today is where?
Is this highlighted area in green, which includes following.
So
my
we're about a
cursor right
block
here.
away from the
Yep.
park
Yep.
dedication area.
And so the park is in this orange area over here, and that'll come at a future date when that piece of property is ready to be annexed in by the developer once they've sold off these lots.
We don't normally make them dedicate it in the preliminary plan process?
They show where they anticipate dedicating it, and then of course the park board has to review that. And
I know the
Okay,
park
that-
board would like to earmark spots in quarters where they want those parks. They think it would help the development of that property if the park was established. The development may start around the park first. So in this case, they haven't really either given us land or the cash equivalent of that land.
it was similar how most of Eastwood's developed. I mean, when this whole quarter section was developed, they labeled this area as being drainage and park area, and it wasn't given initially right away. It was planned to be given, and ultimately it was given to the city. So this is kind of following a similar path where they show where they're going to plan on doing it, and then when the development gets to that area, that's when it'll get platted and deeded to the city.
I have a question, Shane. Is that backwards?
Well, not really, not completely, I'll say it that way. We did review the preliminary plan, and they did indicate a proposed park dedication, and then the park board, of course, gets to review that and decide if that park dedication that's proposed is acceptable or if they have an alternative. Now, we listened to the preliminary plan for this project, a month ago?
The preliminary plan was approved in June.
Okay, in June. And so it just hasn't been brought to the park board in that interim. It is going to be addressed by the park board on Tuesday.
And so when we see this whole area, there's multiple preliminary plans in there.
Correct.
The Cherry Drive area and the Oak Drive area, those are all separate preliminary plans that had park dedication as parts of those?
Most of this quarter section was master planned as all of it was drawn in the original master plan. Then as they've platted it, they've platted pieces, and that's why we're up to Eastwood's 18th edition, because they did first edition where they platted a couple blocks, and then second edition where they did a couple, and each plat has followed the plan, that plan had.
So in that master plan, it had adequate park
Yes.
in there, based on the area that we talk about, and then as each subsection gets developed, they agree as to what area we
Pat,
want
I'd
for
like to
parks.
I'd like to just mention also that I think as a Park and Rec board and as this body, we need to be a bit careful about how many parks we actually put in these, because you're looking at a park maybe 2 blocks away already. Now you're gonna add on another huge park. It's very expensive to operate parks, you know, because we've got mowing that is constantly out there. There's a ton of work involved with parks, so I just want you to be aware of that also when you go into the Park and Rec board.
I agree, because I know
It's
the Park and
expensive.
Rec Board has said what they'd like to do is look at a quarter, and they don't want too many parks too close together.
right. It's
And you don't want
expensive.
any low-end parks, because you have too many. That's why you kind of look in the planning process and go, boy, if at every step you want ground, but was it part of a master plan where there was, you know, in an area like that, what are we, we're 4 blocks by 4 blocks, you would kind of think one nice park rather than a lot of little parks.
Yeah, I agree. The park that you're referring to, is that the drainage area through the middle there that was set aside?
Yep.
Yeah, and I agree.
Essentially,
There's a lot of work in mowing those and maintaining them, that's for sure. The
It's
thing
a
that would-
lot of work, because now all of a sudden you've got that drainage area and the folks that are building there, and you've watched any of the council meetings, they want to have that all drain tile, so it's pristine, they
Right.
don't want rushes there, they don't want any of this stuff, but yet it is park dedication, and we need to have that water control over there also. But I guess my point is, how many parks do you want within 2, 3, 4 blocks? That's what I'm
That's
getting
why
at.
I asked how big was the original master plan, and
Well,
it's
and-
almost like sub-plans in there. It'd be nice to have the whole quarter planned out, so.
Yeah, and originally this quarter was almost all one big plan, which is a quite large plan. I mean, it's 100+ acres. It's a large plan for residential development.
Well, and just to comment, and I totally agree with everything that's said, except in my mind, if you tell me a park, I'm thinking of a park where kids can go play and there's equipment and little softball fielding, play football and all those things. A nice green grassy area is nice, but it's also an area that houses cannot be built on, that was accepted as a park, and it's costing the city a lot of money to maintain, but is really not a park. And I realize I'm not on the park board, but when the park board accepts those kind of things as park dedication, you see what I'm saying? You don't have a park.
Yeah, and I hope this isn't out of order, Mr. Chairman, but once it's dedicated as parkland, and some folks who've been around the city a lot longer than I have know that it'd be south of Highway 212, there was some land, it was a former landfill dedicated to the city for park purposes, and the only way that we could ever, maybe this is a poor choice of words, divorce ourselves of that land that was dedicated for park purposes, you have to have a special election. So I know the Park and Rec Board takes the dedication of parkland seriously, because once it's dedicated and the deed of dedication says it's for park purposes, under state statute as exists today, the only way we could ever not have that as park ground is to have an election by all the voters in Watertown to say, city, do you want to continue to have this as park ground or not? So it's a decision they weigh very seriously.
And just one more question in reference kind of what you said. Who, the drain tile and the maintaining and the mowing, and they don't want cattails and all that, is that the park department that does all of that, puts the drain tile and everything in since it's their
No.
land? I assume not. but-
No, not at all. In fact, it's just the responsibility of the city, and it will not come out of the Park and Rec Department, no.
Yeah.
And
It's a direct responsibility of ours.
In some of that area up north where people aren't happy with the drain tile, was that part of the master plan as far as the drainage plan?
I would like to speak towards that, because I've been very involved in this. That was master plan. When the city purchased the land to the north, it was all intended for retention. And in fact, when then they dedicated the bottom part, it was all planned to have water that came surrounding there from the east and from the west. It all comes there and then flows down that creek.
So this is in the hindsight of the planning plan, as it was designed, it's doing exactly as it was planned, but the current owners of that property now look at it and go, we don't like to have water held behind our homes and the things that go along with the water back there. So now the city's in a quandrum to go, Well, it's actually a feasible drainage plan, but it's not palatable to the neighborhood.
Because it works. It works for what we want as far as drainage, but it doesn't work for the neighborhood, for the pristine, for their backyards. You know, you got the mosquitoes, you've got some deep
Well, 'cause
pockets
you get
there.
standing water.
They're standing water, and
Standing water.
that's our
is
issue.
killer there.
But it's a darn good drainage area, though. It's doing exactly what we've asked it to do, slow the water down so it doesn't cause damage to the south. But
But as an example, my daughter lives in Sioux Falls, and it's a beautiful area, but between their houses and on the cul-de-sac and all the houses to the south of them is a wetland, it's water retention, it's cattails and willows growing, but that's what it's there for, and
Right.
everybody bought around that, and they realized that's what it was. And
Jeff,
it's
on the
not
south
mowed
side
and
of that,
maintained, and
On the, yeah, a little further south there, I think you go down, is there not actual park, playground equipment in there?
There's a playground equipment right.
yeah,
in
there,
here.
and it's actually a highly used
Is there
park that's
playground
down there.
equipment
Yeah,
in there?
yeah, and it's really nicely located in that area. It's always busy when I
That's why
drive
I
by there.
question, do we really need a park to the east? I guess that's my.
And I know the park board has said that's something that they'd like to look at in advance on these quarters to pinpoint where they think the parks need to be, so they're a reasonable distance apart,
Yep.
not every block.
Just to complete the conversation, I think what's being proposed is a park dedication. It can either be accepted by the park board, or they could receive money in kind towards a park that would maybe be built, in the next tier of developments to the east. I don't think it has to be 100% defined in the preliminary plan, of course, process that initiates the discussion, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the final.
But, and Shane, if I
Final
could, Pat,
location.
maybe you could ask the question as well, but is the intention for this to be dual purpose, that it's both park dedication and drainage? Because it sounds to me like what the dedication is gonna do is primarily be a drainage, facilitate drainage, but it also may have some park features, and is that something
I think
to
that
the mayor's
particular
point-
piece of ground is it's more hilly. I don't think there's any retention
It's
in there
kind of at the
whatsoever.
bottom of the hill is where this proposed park dedication is, and it does include a dual purpose. That is where their second water quality facility is supposed to be located, and then by dedicating that to the city, that allows us to operate and maintain the water quality facility in conjunction with the park. So from that standpoint, it isn't a bad location for a park dedication, and of course, they would probably put playground equipment and stuff there if that's where it's finalized. But anyway, it's a dual purpose at the proposal at this point.
And I just want to, clarify, the plat at hand does stop at, 27th Street and doesn't include the parks. I mean, what the park board, if they, decide that they don't want park and they want money, I mean, that'll, just change their future developments. It won't change this one that's being presented today. This one's all residential lots with one lot for drainage.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? That'll close the public hearing. Ask for a motion in a second. Motion by Mr. McGuire. Second by Mr. Dolly. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Fourth item on the agenda is the middle school addition plat.
All right, that's this area that I've highlighted in blue, and got a little lost in the process, but this this property was annexed and zoned and did have a preliminary plan that was approved, and now we're tying up loose ends and having it be platted. I have a picture of the plat both in your agenda and right here. The development agreement went to council quite a few months ago, and that was approved. And this is just the drawing of the plat and tying up loose ends, take it to council next step. But
Lessons 101. Can you issue a building permit before it's platted?
I'll defer to our building official.
It's only one lot. Can you, I mean, normally we're supposed to plat, then issue a building permit.
If it is already a parcel of record or a single lot, it has a buildable right.
Okay, anyway,
It's being redivided
anyway.
into 3 separate lots.
Could it be done administratively? It's only one lot,
It
right?
has right-of-way involved in it. We typically don't administratively plat
Okay,
anything.
so
with right-of-way.
therefore, if there's right-of-way involved in a plat, we always, no matter how many lots, it comes to us first. Normally.
Typically, yes.
And then
yes.
if it doesn't, and there's 5 or less lots, then you guys can administratively plat that also.
We still can bring those ones to you guys as well.
I was just doing that for the members of the board to decide exactly how the platting process works. But like what Ken was saying, it's a lot of legal records, so it has building rights. You can issue a building permit even
Even if it's
before
just legally
platted.
described and it's not a platted lot
If they would have
yet,
split it into 2, it would have only had 1 building right, even though there would have been 2 lots. 5 or less lots legally can be administratively platted, but many cases, the engineering department will bring things to us just to make it of public notice as to what's going on and keep us abreast of it. With that, I'll open the public hearing if anyone's here to speak on behalf or against the plat. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Ask for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mr. Albertson. Second by Mr. Arnold. Any other discussion on how the platting works?
Albertson isn't a voting member. Can I get a motion from someone else, please?
Why?
You're the council liaison.
Okay, busted. Sorry, I was gonna say something, but I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I'll need a motion. Motion by Mr. Arnold, second by Mr. Dolly. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. 6th item on the agenda. Luke, I'm glad you brought the boys along to help us out with this one. 6th item on the, I take it back, I'm on number 5. We're gonna go to number 6. Number 5 is the new softball complex and ice arena, just a rezone discussion.
Yeah, and we actually, I'll highlight these properties real quick. Staff would like you guys to initiate the rezone. These properties, and I included the Anza Soccer Complex in what I just highlighted. These properties are currently zoned I-2 heavy industrial, which recreational uses such as ice arena, softball field, and soccer
Not
complex.
recommended in the I zone?
Yeah, not a permitted use, not a conditional use.
Kids running and playing in the industrial zone
Yeah,
isn't of a.
exactly. So, staff would there's 3 ways to do a rezone, either by petition, by plan commission initiation, or by city council initiation. And in this particular case, staff would like the plan commission to consider initiating rezoning this property to C1.
So at
community
this point,
commercial.
we're at discussion. You're gonna ask us to ask you.
Yep, and then
to rezone it.
Then I'll bring it forward in the future and do a public hearing.
Can you point there? If a person, I happened to drive by there today, and boy, they're moving some dirt. If we want a little update of what's going on, can you point to where the ice arena is gonna be? Because that's to the north, I believe.
Yeah, this is up here. My pointer might not be exact.
So it'll be
but it's
tucked
pretty
in
close.
behind those buildings
Yep.
that are there.
Yeah, and then this is platted right away, and this road will come down, and it'll tie into 17th. And then on the north side of that road will be the ice arena, and the south side will be the softball fields. Of course, it'll be.
Will
parking.
that road that goes into there, will that line up with that Anza entrance into the Anza entrance, do you know?
I don't know for sure. We can.
Is the softball road south of the soccer entrance or north? A little bit north of there.
I think it's north. I think it's basically falls right along the bottom side of those existing buildings there.
Okay. It'll start to take shape pretty soon. So what you'd like to do is do we need to take a vote on it, or
No,
do you just
no,
want
this is-
a general
Yeah,
idea?
You want, just, you guys to say.
What will
want
you
us to-
rezone it? What's the recommended zoning there?
We did a lot of discussion on this, and based on the surrounding uses, we were hoping you guys would initiate rezoning it to C1 community commercial. The reason for that is it has the conditional use of recreational use, whereas our other C zones do not have that use. And of course, our residential uses have recreational use, but we don't want it zoned residential because of the possibility of what might be developed in the future to the south.
C1's probably the most limiting commercial
Yep.
district as far as uses.
And C1 is what the current Cook Complex and the Georgie Mays Ice Arena is zoned.
It's not the zero lot line that you're looking for?
Yeah, it
I'm
does have
teasing.
zero lot line, but
Is all that area owned by the city?
yes.
Are building permits required when you put up like the concession stands and things like that?
Yes.
Okay, that all goes through the department with everyone else.
It's currently working under just a fill permit right now, but
I understand why we want to go with a C rather than an R, because you
Yeah.
never know if it's, for some reason, parts of it are sold off in the future. We'd rather not have residences down there.
One more little point on that, right where the parking lot is for Ann's, if you go a bit to the north, that's where we're contemplating putting in the storm shelter over there.
And that would be on the east
Right.
side of the road there?
Yes, be on the east side, and right north of that parking lot.
And that was a discussion at the work session the
That's
other night
correct.
as to, that was a recommendation that we get a storm shelter in that
Right.
part of the community.
Yeah, exactly. And then the fire department is actually going out for grants right now to put in a storm shelter. And what that would do, it would really help the trailer court to the north. There's over 300 people that live up in that area without any shelter at all. So if we did that shelter, it would really help.
You
a
could
lot of
easily have
folks.
1,000 people there on any given weekend.
Yeah.
Between the softball complex and the soccer complex, tournament weekend or evenings. All right, any other discussion? Anyone have any issues with the C1 recommendation? Go ahead, Stan.
Jeff, you probably know this, and maybe we've talked about it during a Tuesday meeting, but I know, not being real familiar with the planned design of this facility, when it's all completed, I know that there's a maximum height limit in the C1 district. Have you examined that, and is that potentially going to be an issue or no?
I have not examined that. I can.
the C1 height limitations only applies to structures for building and stuff, and that's not going to be an issue with
Okay,
your,
good,
with your
good.
fences, your light poles, or any of that. They're all exempt from that
Okay.
requirement, so
Good.
it won't be an issue.
Just in case it came up, I wanted to make sure it was out there. Thanks.
Okay, I think C1 would make sense. I didn't see any opposition to that from anyone. Item number 6 was a gateway overlay district signage discussion.
Yep, I'm gonna let Tim handle this one. He knows a lot more about signs than I do. Just gonna.
It's called a mute button, okay? So just throw it at it. Don't be afraid to
I
use it.
was going to recuse myself from the next vote, so you'd have something to do.
I'm gonna let the record show that Mark McGuire had to leave.
Or Jason.
McGuire, excuse me. Thanks.
Jeez, we have Mark McGuire here.
He's still not in play. As the liaison for the Planning Commission, you don't ever get a vote for the Planning Commission. Yep. So.
You ready for me?
But your opinions are greatly appreciated.
Okay, we're kind of, this area, for maybe those who are unfamiliar, this area of Watertown, which is the same area that Trav's Outfitter came in for today, stretches from kind of this area here all the way along, it kind of squares off here. It's called the Gateway Overlay District. There's some different set of rules. The one that came earlier. Yeah, and then in your packet, Jeff did include that, I guess, that red shaded area within there of what it is. But one of the limitations within the Gateway Overlay District is only properties that directly abut Highway 212 are allowed to have a freestanding sign that can be made of a pole type structure. Otherwise, they have to be ground monument style signs. Kind of what precipitated this question was you have Casey's located here, the former Ace building. You have within the gateway overlay, there is a present building under construction right here that is asking questions about signage. And on this side of 19th Avenue, or 19th Street, excuse me, you can't have a pole sign by code, by ordinance. But on this side of 19th Street, you can have a pole sign up to 30 feet tall if it's in the C3 zone. There presently is one located here at this church down here, and this little specific use office building also has a pole style sign. The question coming towards you guys is, do you want us to take a look and propose something to bring back to you? It's kind of the same thing you just did on this last item. Do you want us to take a look? Do you have some recommendations on what you'd like to see? Showing you specifically, this area here is, like I said, Highway 212. Off-premises signs are allowed out there by permit, pole signs and ground signs. Everything else that's not directly adjacent to 212 follows this rule. We could easily cut this part out for every place else, other than 212. I mean, however you guys want, or whatever you think.
I asked Luke to come back for this one because he was here, and I talked to some of the guys. I was around when I think Dennis was too, when this Gateway Overlay District was put together. And I think it's a very, very slippery slope that we're walking on when we start messing with the Gateway Overlay District. Go ahead, Luke. Give us a little background of why that gateway was put there and how it came about.
I'll go with a short story for a couple-year project, but the whole idea was just to have a higher design standard, and it took a lot of different iterations. It started, one of the ideas was just a design review type of a deal, similar to what you did earlier today with the outfitter, where you looked at the building and said, yeah, that's going to be a nice building, that's going to fit, that'll be good. And in the end, it wound up being, you know what, the city's got a lot of infrastructure, they're paying for a lot of things on this particular property. We want to make sure that it's going to fit some sort of a specific vision or type of development. So that's where the city wound up having very specific aesthetic requirements for how to handle any sort of development. So that's where you wind up seeing all of the building requirements that we've got into there. It was to lead to downtown, as has been said before, but we left that 212 in terms of signage. At that time, the portion along 212 was left the way that it is because of the fact that it was expected that would continue developing the same way. There was discussion at the time about allowing pole signs along 19th because we had some businesses starting there, but we also saw businesses on the other side of the road having monument signs and that sort of thing. So the idea at that time, I remember, was to leave monument signs for everything that wasn't on Highway 212.
And I think it was because the property on the east side of 19th are in the Gateway Overlay District. The property on the west side is not.
Correct.
And that a boundary had to be set somewhere. And if you move the boundary to, well, if you're abut 19th, we're going to give it to you, but 19th isn't 212. You know, you can say, well, the guy across the street has a sign, so I need a sign. Well, it's just going to leapfrog, and then the signs are going to get taller and taller because they're going to want to be seen from 6 blocks away on Highway 212. But I've talked to a few of the guys that were around that drafted that, and they said, highly recommend, don't mess with the Gateway Overlay District. There has been some modifications in recent council meetings as far as the probably the most stringent thing in the overlay district was the selection of colors. And Ken, that was modified a bit. And remember, this started 10 years ago. The city footed the bill for all the infrastructure, roads, curb, gutter. The developers did not. So the city has a vested interest in what happens out there.
It was recommended that the colors be earth tones, but now we just recently had an ordinance change that allows the mayor's planning and zoning staff meeting to review those and make recommendations to
And I
yes or
think
no.
since this overlay district was put together, branding has changed and that's the reason for that is your large companies that come in that may want to locate on there, they're color specific for their buildings. I mean, branding is different today than it was 10 years ago. It's more important now than ever.
Correct. Yep.
And I think that's a reasonable modification to it. But to go with signs, and the big thing is this is the gateway to the uptown, and the city footed the bill for a lot of that infrastructure, and what they wanted to see was a feel when you came down that road as far as setbacks, greenway, just openness of moving down there. They didn't want the clutter that we ran into, and the clutter isn't nearly as bad on 212 as it was 10 years ago. And it's gonna be a lot better by the time the highway goes through, but I'm not a fan of allowing signage. The deal is, the land was developed there under certain circumstances and purchased in there under circumstances. We have to protect the city's interest, and we also have to protect the landowners within that Gateway Overlay District that all agreed to that overlay district and wanted it.
You know, and I agree with you, Pat. I really don't care to really take a look at making too many changes in that area. If you, that's a gateway district, and you say you're coming into town, it sets a mood and tone for what the community is going to look like.
In the interior of that, we've
take the-
already rezoned.
Well,
We've
yeah.
already bent on the zoning on the interior of that area.
If you take the contrast and go out to the west side of town, you can see just the opposite happening out there, which you have a lot of pole structures going up within the city limits, which they're allowed, but I guess, but quite a difference from what we're expecting in there.
We could potentially, if you want to address what this, if you allowed a pole structure, maybe you address what they can look like or heights and stuff, maybe we can change, because that is regulated within our ordinance differently.
Say that again?
I mean, maybe we could address the look of the signs. I mean, maybe if you want to maybe at least entertain another style, maybe we, like, take for instance, this sign that's here for Home Federal. They have
That's not in the Gateway Overlay
right,
District.
but I'm just saying for instance, or the Montgomery sign that has, it's a 2-pole structure, but it matches the building. It has the earth tones.
The
it has
Montgomery
covers.
furniture sign on 212?
Right, those kind of, I'm saying that.
That's what they didn't want in the Gateway Overlay
but
District.
I'm
Specifically what they did not want in the Gateway Overlay District.
That
There's
it's a
some
big
businesses
sign.
that belong in there. There might be some that don't conform to it. I don't think we want to turn it into pole signs.
So nowhere along Willow Creek Drive can you have a pole sign?
That's why I kind of put this preliminary plan. It's not, this doesn't hold true anymore, but it's close. So essentially, anything that's on any of these lots right here could have a pole sign if the sign's out here. Anything that's on this side of that street or along this street cannot have a pole sign.
Okay, and so that would be plats 1 through 6, is that what it is?
1 through 6 here, and then, 1 and
The pole
whatever
sign
else.
has to be on Highway 212 side of
The
the
way
building,
it
not
reads
on
now.
the 8th Avenue
That is
side.
correct.
Okay, and what is the height restriction on a monument sign?
It could be a 30-foot tall monument sign.
But not likely.
Not likely, but it is possible.
Yeah, I think we've waited for 10 years for this place to develop. And we bought into the economy's tough, we can't sell any lots, so we went in and we rezoned to R2 in there, which we've been beat up for that already in the public. And we'll get beat up worse on that. And now the economy is actually coming back. Now there's some interest out there. I don't think we throw the baby out with the bathwater yet.
What is prompting this?
The fact that they're asking questions on what they can do. He asked, okay.
The car wash wants a sign on 19th.
On 19th. by
Which
its
which we've been beat up for putting a car wash in the Gateway Overlay District also.
But that's where it comes from. He says, well, you look down this street, there's pole signs on both sides of the road. Why is
So he says, because the guy across the street has it, I want it.
But he was
Or even
aware
on the
of that.
same side
He
of
he
the
was
road.
aware of that when he bought the land, that it was a
He's just a
gateway overlay.
tenant here. It's the tenant, not the landowner that's asking the question.
I agree with Pat. I think we should leave well enough alone.
I think we need to be careful. We finally getting some development out there, and we just want to give it a chance to develop the way it was intended to develop. We can still take things on case-by-case scenarios, I assume. Any other questions on that one? Item number 7, Plan Commission meeting schedule. There's no time that's a bad time for a Plan Commission meeting.
That's exactly what I'm here to say. Well, actually, right now we have, one meeting a month with the Plan Commission, third Thursday after the first Monday, as I know you are all well aware of. And it's been discussed at the staff level about adding another meeting a month, so we would do 2 meetings a month, just like you currently do 2 Board of Adjustment meetings a month. If you guys are okay with that, we will just meet with the Board of Adjustment for the rest of this year. And then starting next year, starting January, we'll probably move both of those meetings to a 4:15 meeting so that, you know, it's not taking up your lunch and your whole afternoon with a long meeting. But, you know, some of the reasons that we wanted to do this is just currently with just 1 meeting a month, if an applicant misses a deadline, they can wait up to, you know, 6 weeks to get onto a Planning Commission agenda, which is a long time to wait. And if we had more meetings, they wouldn't have as long to wait. And also, if we have, you know, 2 meetings a month instead of 1, our meeting times shouldn't go as long. I mean, we've had a couple of meetings in the recent past where, you know, we've ended up with a large agenda and we you know, pushing 7 o'clock by the time we're done, and we're hopeful that if we do 2 meetings a month, we can keep them shorter. And it'll also help us at the staff level, you know, help applicants get their, meet the deadline. I mean, right now, we don't want to let an applicant miss a deadline because of how long of a wait that'll create with them. So we're, you know, allowed applicants to, on occasion, you know, get on the agenda with an incomplete application. But with this, if we're meeting twice a month, we can tell them, no, your application isn't complete, you know, come back in 2 weeks. So we're just hoping for,
So
you
the
guys are okay
so
with
the
that.
upside, you know, the Wednesday afternoon meetings, the only thing I don't like about them is some people can't get off any day during the afternoon to be on our board. If we, you know, I think it hurts us for being able to find board members. Secondly, I know it's tough for some people when they say I'm going to be out of the office for an hour and it ends up being 2 or longer. So that's the upside of moving it. The downside is, you know, John mentioned, well, now it's every other Thursday night. You know, is the downside better than, is one's downside better than the other's?
Also, too, I'm curious, is staff salaried or is staff hourly? And is this gonna cause more overtime?
Well, we're thinking get Ken a little OT.
Most of the staff is salaried, and those that aren't salaried are requested to make up, to come in, like Jill took a 2-hour lunch today, so she could be an hour here late tonight, so.
Okay, so it's not gonna cost the city any more money either
For
way
the
you do
note,
it.
for the record, Jill, I would have slept in a couple extra hours instead of that 2-hour lunch.
But we are volunteers here, and it is gonna tie up 2 nights a week versus, or 2 nights a month versus just the 1.
Yeah, that's,
And like Dennis said, hopefully it could make us shorter meetings, and which would be nice. I mean, if you go 4:15 and you can be out of here by 5:30 or 6, that's reasonable. What do you guys think on that? And Dan, I'll ask your opinion on this
This is a big one.
because you're here 2 other nights a month
There you go.
too. So you're now 4
I
nights.
think if it works for the staff, that's really what you need to look at. And if it doesn't work as well for people on Wednesday, then I think the Thursday afternoon short. Just because you have them scheduled, you wouldn't necessarily have one either, would you?
I mean, that's all based on what we get for applications.
Easier for applicants to just go, hey, it's every other Thursday, rather than, oh, I forgot it was on a Wednesday.
And that's part of what sparked this. I mean, right now, if an applicant misses a deadline by a week, well, instead of being on that month's meeting, they have to go to the next month's, and then they end up waiting. They get their application in, but have to wait 6 weeks for it to get heard by you guys. You
Right.
know, and it's a long time to hold up the process.
Even then, it does
Well, and
catch people up sometimes, you know, like Trav out there, he's been kind of stymied now, waiting for today too, so
Yeah.
if it would have been.
Should have taken more time.
So I think it's a good idea to get into
Yeah.
a routine.
I like the idea of the same day. You know, is this a Wednesday week meeting or is this a Thursday?
Our plan
It's
going
always-
forward
it's always
is
Thursday.
we'll finish off this year as scheduled. The plan commission will meet with the Board of Adjustment on their regular Wednesday meeting at noon next month and November 4th. But then starting in January, the plan will be to do 2 Thursday evenings at 4:15.
No.
Is there a reason why we can't, if we're gonna do it, why wouldn't, if we're gonna make a change anyway, why don't we make the change? Why make half the change and then wait 3 months to do the whole thing?
Well,
What, is there
November,
a reason for
November
that,
stuff
or-
has already been advertised and put out there. So basically, all you got is December. December, we don't have 2 meetings anyway. There's generally only one because it conflicts with Christmas and everything else. And it probably won't be the first Wednesday or the third. You might have to look at your schedule and see, because I think the December meeting's an odd day meeting.
So are we gonna say the first and third Thursdays of the month?
Well, it's the first Thursday after the first Monday and
Oh,
third.
jeez.
And we
How
would
about just
call-
the first and third? It's easy to look at a calendar that way.
Next
First
month,
month, first.
And we can do that. We have no problem. There's no
I
criteria.
think it'd be, how does it fall out as far as getting your information? Can a guy go the first and third Thursday of every month? If there's a fifth Thursday, we're off. Or the odd Thursdays of the
This isn't
month.
gonna bother us. I don't know what's gonna do to you.
Because what are you saying? It's the first Thursday after the first Wednesday?
After the first Monday.
After the first Monday?
If you don't have a Monday
Just in
in
case
that
Monday
month-
doesn't come before Thursday at some time?
I know, but if you don't have a Monday in that month.
In that
then
month,
it
then
falls
it's
to
the
next
second
month. It's
Thursday.
kinda like city council right now is the same way.
Yeah, I suppose that we have to follow that city council meeting, though. We can't just go rogue and go first and third
No,
if they
you can go
don't.
rogue, you can do whatever you wanna do.
Well, I mean, it's nice, it's nice if we meet on a Thursday and they meet on a Monday, because then
No,
things go
well,
directly into
it
their.
It would be nice if we met the same weeks as city council, because with, let's say for instance, we had a rezoning today on the agenda and you guys recommended approving it, I can get that and meet, city council's deadline to get them on a first reading.
Because what
If
you
we
do
were
is
offset,
you
we'd be
advert,
able
you
to-
advertise assuming
Yeah.
that we're going to be there, so that you could pull it off
Yeah.
theirs rather than put it
Yeah.
on.
Right, as we do it right now, I don't advertise it until you guys approve it, because I have the time to do that. If we were
See,
offset,
yeah.
it'd struggle.
There's another goal here is if we meet twice a month with the planning commission and all of those items go to the council. If we get off schedule, things that we do here aren't approved until a council meeting afterwards. So by meeting twice, we get the process going at the council level quicker as well. So if we have to wait, like Jeff said, if somebody misses a deadline by 1 day, they're waiting 6 weeks before the planning commission and 8 weeks before the council hears it.
So I
Or
guess.
more. So that's why it's important.
we'd wanna do it
We're
as
getting
easy as we
pressure from
can.
business people out there to be able to be heard more frequently, to keep their plans and their businesses rolling. And this is one solution that we felt was prudent to at least approach and do.
So we'll do the first and third Thursday as long as it comes after a Monday.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll bring a schedule next month for you guys to officially approve.
All right, sounds good. Anything else?
Nope.
No old business, no new business? Can I get a
Nope,
motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Dolly. Second by Mr. Stein. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries.